Hi everyone. Do you ever tense up when you're around other people? Like being afraid to look silly in front of others, feel judged, or worse still be snubbed. And sometimes you just sit there and can't help feeling guilty about nothing, or at least that's how it seems. Believe me, I've been there. So you end up isolating yourself because, that is the best option, right? But here's the catch. You are not alone. Social anxiety is more common than people think. Really though, who hasn't been through an awkward moment at some point? But here is where it gets interesting. You are not strange. No way. You are just wired differently, and that is what makes you unique. So what does wired differently even mean? And how does this interfere with our interactions with others? Stick around because we're going to explore this fascinating topic deeper than anyone has done before. Let us try to figure out why we feel like this and what could be done about our situation. The brain and social anxiety. Our brains are messy, but everyone's is different a bit from another person's brain. In regards to social anxiety, these are important areas. Amygdala. This part of your brain functions like a fire alarm, ringing when danger approaches by controlling that fear response within your body system. If you have social anxiety, chances are your amygdala might be hypersensitive, thus always being ready to ring the bell in any social event, making them seem much intimidating than they really are. Prefrontal cortex. This part helps in decision-making and emotional regulation, as well as self-control abilities. However, if one has got social anxiety, then their prefrontal cortex may find it hard to calm down the amygdala, hence leading into uncontrollable anxious feelings during interaction with other people in such situations. Hypothalamus. Call it a command center for your body. It acts in the interests of your whole body, for instance regulating such things as breathing, blood flow, and heartbeat. How does the amygdala work? Automatic response. The amygdala can kickstart your fear reaction even if you haven't yet consciously processed what is happening. For example, when one spots a snake, the amygdala may react by causing you to jump back involuntarily before you have time to think about it. Influenced by thoughts. The amygdala also works in response to thoughts and memories that one has had. When you reflect on some shameful moment in life or imagine future social party at school or work, the amygdala can go into overdrive mode, making people anxious. That is why just contemplating about a social gathering can cause anxiety. Learning and memory. Emotional memory formation involves the amygdala. So if you've been through bad experiences previously while around many individuals, then your amygdala might recognize them when similar ones occur again, thereby causing those fears. Once the amygdala designates something as dangerous, it seems to be like sounding an alarm bell in your brain. Your adrenal glands receive signals from hypothalamus going ahead to release adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream, which get your body prepared for fight or flight response. You begin breathing more quickly and your heart beats faster, increasing its rate, and blood pressure rises as well. All of this occurs within seconds, so that it takes a while before you feel the changes mentioned above happening inside of yourself. At first sight of danger sources around you, imagine a situation where you once had a rough time in a party. It was quite difficult for you to talk with others. Since then, whenever the idea of talking with others comes into your mind, fear signals are sent by your amygdala, and this is because it recalls how stressful that particular experience was. It's like your brain has this intention of protecting you, but sometimes it goes overboard. Your prefrontal cortex tries to calm things down, yet it is like a small voice amidst loud sirens. Sometimes during episodes of social anxiety, the prefrontal cortex can regain control, but frequently, it takes much effort and specific techniques for doing so. At times though, the prefrontal cortex can worsen matters by overreacting and supporting amygdala's stress response too much. This may occur due to cognitive distortions, catastrophizing, picturing, as well as expecting the worst outcome possible from anything even if there is no evidence that this will happen. Overgeneralization, believing that one bad event will always recur in similar situations. Mind reading, assuming what other people think about us is negative without any kind of proof whatsoever. Magnification, exaggerating or enlarging events, making them appear worse than they really are. Personalization, thinking that someone else's actions or words are directed at you, most often in an unkind manner. Previous experiences. Trauma. Past traumatic experiences can make your prefrontal cortex more likely to support the amygdala's freak out in similar future situations, even if the threat isn't real anymore. Learned fear. If you've had repeated negative experiences, your prefrontal cortex might start expecting bad things to happen and reinforce the amygdala's response. Neurotransmitters and social anxiety. These neurotransmitters help nerve cells communicate with each other in the brain. In fact, they could be called messengers of signals. Two important neurotransmitters in relation to social anxiety are serotonin. It is also known as the mood, anxiety, and happiness controller. With less serotonin in your system, you will feel more anxious and sad. Dopamine. Besides being associated with pleasure and rewards, dopamine is also involved in anxiety. In case of abnormal levels of dopamine, you might find it hard to socialize freely. The mood-regulating nature of serotonin that fluctuates results into increased feelings of anxiety when it's low. In addition to this, if dopamine does not reward positive social experiences anymore, then a person may lack motivation for getting involved socially, thus worsening the anxiety even further. However, these messengers play a role after the immediate threat has passed in helping one recover slowly back to normal. Neural pathways and conditioning learned responses. Over time, your brain can form pathways that reinforce anxiety in social situations. If you've felt anxious in social settings over and over, your brain might start associating those situations with fear automatically. Avoidance behavior. A cycle arises where avoiding social situations seems to reduce anxiety temporarily, but ultimately makes the fear increase as your mind keeps linking such situation to fear. Genetics and environmental factors. Research shows that social anxiety can be influenced by both your genes and your environment. Genetics, the family connection. If someone from your family has this condition, then chances are high that you too can suffer from it, because there are certain genes which make people prone to suffering from any kind of anxiety disorder. Environmental factors. The impact of experiences. The brain's reaction to social situations may also be influenced by what a person experiences and his or her immediate environment. Social anxiety can develop due to traumatic or distressing social events, especially during one's youth. How you were nurtured and the social conduct you saw in your parents can also have an impact. In case something bad happened when you went to school, for example, like when you were asked questions in class and everyone laughed at you, or maybe one student ridiculed you. Such encounters often leave indelible marks on individuals' lives, making them feel equally scared when confronted with similar circumstances later in their lives. Social anxiety can become even more intense because of cultural norms and societal pressures. For instance, if your culture values high achievement levels in social life, then it is likely that lack of success might create tension for some people. How this affects you. Knowing that your brain is wired differently from other people's brains makes it possible for you not to blame yourself for having a social anxiety disorder. It is not something that is easy to walk away from, as it is part of how the brain functions under the influence of genetic composition, neurotransmitters, and experiences which are shaped by our environment. Rather than focusing on removing anxiety altogether, and by the way, only sociopaths have no worries at all, who are famous for their disregard of social norms, we should aim at reducing or balancing it out. And so, that brings us to the end of this video. Therefore, this should enable you change how you perceive things, as well as give you enough courage to increase your inner circle group sizes. Just remember that this problem affects many people, including yourself, so there is no need for feeling isolated about it. Besides, remember, talking with professionals will always help if ever required. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to hit like and comment below, sharing any great strategies on dealing with social anxiety that has worked for you before, or maybe the negative thoughts that mess you up in social situations. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and peace.